Welcome, I'm the Deadwood Jedi. This is another Raid Shadow Legends video, and yeah, I had a takeover today from Dark Lord Sin, and he asked me to come in and make up his clan boss team. He was doing about 24 million on Nightmare, very solid two-key team, but wasn't really, didn't really have any kind of tune going on there, and asked me if I could help improve his team. Now, his clan is only doing Nightmare, and he was looking forward to, potentially being able to move forward and do Ultra Nightmare once they open that up. And so, kind of something that can work for both. And so, I took a look at the account, and this is very typical of an early game account in that has the champions, doesn't have the gear, and got some really nice champions, specifically Krisk, which is going to enable us to build a Slow Krisk Tune. Now, this is a build I haven't really covered a whole lot because not everybody has a Krisk. Obviously, one of the hardest champions in this game to get and super impactful. But one of the reasons why Krisk is so good and is something that for early games accounts is an excellent way to go when it comes to clan boss. And even if you don't have a Krisk, you can take the same concept and use other champions to fill that role. And what I'm talking about is doing a slow speed tune. So if you don't have a Krisk, that's fine. Understand why he's so good for these early game accounts, why he makes his team so great. I mean, obviously he brings a lot of stuff, right? Decrease attack, decrease defense, ally protection. But the most important thing he brings is increased speed with all that. And if you can bring in an increased speed champion or a turn meter champion, that can enable you to run all of your other champions at much slower rates. So let's say you don't have the gear, right? You don't have the speed substats. Well, when you're running them at 170, 190, 200 plus speed, that's a big issue. It's really hard to build any damage on top of a team when you're running at those speeds and you don't have the gear for it. But when you can drop those speeds down to 160, 150, 140, like we're running these champions at, all of a sudden it makes it a lot easier to build your champions really well, even with limited gear sources. And that's what we did. Now, most of the time I get big whale accounts that are asking for help, and people that, don't mind spending the money because, this isn't free. It takes a lot of my time and effort to do these things. So they have plenty of resources. This was not the case here. We were very low on books, very low on chickens, and only had like 25 million silver. And to re-gear an entire clan boss team, that's really not a lot of silver. So I didn't level up anybody new, didn't have to skill out anybody. We used the champions he had, and I think we did a pretty good job here. So let's get into it. I'll show you guys the build so you guys can see exactly what we did with this team. Now, before I go ahead and show you guys the build of this team, I do want to remind you, go ahead and hit that subscribe, that notification bell, so you guys know when my next video comes out. Don't want to miss out on this cool info, right? And then on top of that, if you enjoyed today's music, hit that Soundstripe link down below. You can use code Deadwood Jedi, save 15%. And man, this is the music I use for all of my videos, all of my streams. I actually really like it and just listen to it on my own time. So I definitely recommend checking that out, especially if you're looking for copyright-free music. So with all that said, let's look at the build. So the previous team he was using was a mix of a variety of champions. We had like Calvalax, I think Draco was in there, Krisk, but it wasn't tuned at all. So I did have to go in and re-gear. Now this, I have to give credit to Dark Lord Sin. He definitely, knows how to gear his champions. I thought there weren't any, attack boots on Rosin or, crit damage at 200 and crit rate at 30. Like we didn't have any of those kinds of issues. But because I did need to do a full re-gear in order to get the speeds, I had to redo pretty much everything. So this is the team I built. We've got Krisk, we've got Tyrant in there, we've got Geomancer, Draco, and Battle Khazar. Now, obviously, these are OP champions. This is a really good team right here. But it all comes down to the gear. There's so many accounts out there that have plenty of champions and no gear, and that's usually the kind that I get asked to work on, because it's one thing to have the champions, but if you don't know how to use them right, it's not going to do you any good at all. So he's got the OP champions. We just had to come up with a good tune to work with them, and I think this is going to be the one. Now, I've set the priority, so everything should be working nice and smooth. Once we get into the run, I'll actually go over that with you guys so you understand exactly why we're using the skills when we're using them, because, it can be a little tricky using two ally protection champions, making sure we have increased defense on everybody. But thankfully, Krisk is OP like all heck, and he can extend a lot of those buffs, making it a lot easier to gear these guys out and keep everybody alive for a very long time. So let's go ahead and take a look at the champions here, how I geared them out. Now, I do have Krisk here. You can see he's got 4,000 defense, 5,400 HP, 191 speed. That's what we're looking for. And enough accuracy for Ultra Nightmare. I did build everything for Ultra Nightmare, so he can take this exact same team at these exact same speeds and run it in the exact same way on Ultra Nightmare. No changes needed. Now, there's a couple things you might notice. Not everything is rolled up on this account, like not even close to everything. You can see Krisk here, it's only got an level 8 defensive chest plate. It's going to do a lot more damage when that gets rolled up. 12 defense speed boots, or defensive boots, right? These things, we roll these up and it can make a massive difference to our survivability as well as our damage overall. Now, one thing you'll notice, I have about 54,000 HP on Krisk, and part of the reason why normally with ally protection champions, what you want to do is you want to build them up with a lot of HP and less defense, because the HP is going to scale better later on, right? We do have increased defense from Tyrant up for the full fight, so we don't need massive amounts of defense. I would recommend this for Dark Lord Sin as he advances his account and re-gears these champions in time, is to lean more HP, right? The defensive level we have is probably actually more than we need. So I would start leaning more into the HP vein of things, maybe replace a chest piece with an HP chest plate, that type of thing. So there are definitely ways to kind of improve this, build in more crit rate. Those things are going to be really helpful. Now you might notice we don't have any crit damage on them, right? Only like 79%. That's by design. Ally protection champions, the damage they take from their allies is going to be, if it's a crit, it will be using their own crit damage to modify that. So keeping the crit damage of your ally protection champions low is actually usually a really good thing. And of course, I should mention his masteries. He is going down the offensive tree as well as the defensive tree. Now, one thing we do have him here with Heart of Glory. That's totally fine. This is just how he's built, and I didn't think worth changing. One thing I usually do, and you'll see this, is I usually take rejuvenation just to make sure they heal up a little bit more throughout the fight. But it's not going to be a big deal, especially for Krisk, because he's going to be full health pretty much the full time. And then that brings us to Tyrant. Again, not fully rolled. As you can see, the chest and the boots both only at 12. All the artifacts are only at level 8, so definitely can improve that. Now, one of the things you might notice here is Tyrant actually does have 100% crit rate and a little bit of crit damage. Now, typically, like I said, ally protection champions, you're not looking to build the crit damage, you're just looking to keep the crit rate up and the crit damage low. But because Tyrant is actually not going to be the main ally protection champion, Krisk is the one protecting everybody else on the team except for the stun, and that's just the stun. It's not a big deal. It's not taking a lot of extra damage. So for him, I didn't think there would be any problem building his crit damage up. He's really only taking some damage that he's sharing from Krisk. It's not going to be enough to really affect him. So I actually have crit damage amulet on him, and I would go ahead and build that up even more as I go through it. I think you can get decent damage out of Tyrant by building that up on him. As far as masteries go, we went down the offensive tree and the support tree. Now, this is how it was built already. I didn't change it. And a lot of times I do, but as you can see, we're pretty low on resources on this account, and I didn't want to use them unnecessarily. And I don't think it's going to really make much of a difference for Tyrant right now to go down the defensive tree like I would normally take. I would basically do him exactly like I did with Krisk. But I didn't feel like that was going to be necessary for this team, so I went ahead and just left it the way it was. We're actually not using Tyrant's HP burn, but if he wants to use them in other areas of the game, this is a solid build for that. And then we get to the damage dealer, starting here with Draco. Now, Draco is doing lots of work. I was actually able to get what I think is a pretty solid build. As far as his stats go, you can see only 144 speed. It's got 100% crit rate, 218 crit damage, and 222 accuracy. Now, for Ultra Nightmare, this accuracy is on the low side. I like to have a minimum of about 225. I really try to keep it between 235 and 250, but we didn't glyph anything, and there's definitely room to improve that. So 4,700 attack I think is pretty solid, but obviously we want to build that up as much as possible. Now, one thing I will point out, he's only got 2,400 defense. It's very low, only 30,000 HP. If one of the things we want to do as we watch the run is see who dies first, and if it's Draco, that tells us we need more defense, we need more HP, so we can survive a little bit longer. The ideal thing for a clan boss run is everybody wipes at the same time, or we're dying to the stun after lasting an absurd amount of time. And so right now we're seeing Draco and Geo be particularly low on health, as they're going through the fight compared to the rest of the champions. So the ideal thing would be to build his defense, his HP up just a little bit more, and hopefully he can survive a little bit longer in the fight. As far as his mastery goes, we did go down the offensive tree and we went down the defensive tree. And you can see this is the ideal defensive tree setup in my opinion. It's definitely a more safe build. A lot of people like taking Heart of Glory or they like taking Grim Resolve to get more damage out. I just always prefer Rejuvenation to make sure my team stays alive longer, but that's really a call that you can make. It's not going to make a huge difference to the overall damage of your squad. And then we get to the last DPS, and that's going to be Geomancer. Now you can see I haven't rolled hardly anything. We've got attack boots on, we've got attack chest on, and we've got crit damage gloves. None of them are rolled up all the way. It's going to be a massive increase in the damage potential of this team once we get those all the way up. Now, as far as his stats go, you can see only 2,100 defense. This is very low. 26,000 HP, again, very low. Building those up is going to be really important going forward because when we start losing champions, the tune will stay going, but obviously our damage potential falls off a cliff. So the more, tanky we can build these other champions, the better it's going to be for us. Now, we don't need to go overboard. We do have ally protection on all these champions. It means they're taking half the damage. And we have increased defense up the full fight too. So, we stopped losing a lot of the damage mitigation from defense at about 4,800 defense. Well, to get to that point with an increased defense buff, if you have 3,000 defense on your champion, with increased defense giving you another 60%, that takes you to that 4,800 mark. So generally, I try to aim for about 3,000 defense on all my champions when I have increased defense all the way. That's just min-maxing the defense levels. We're definitely under that. So improving that can go a long ways towards helping us out. But, we have other damage mitigation from Tyrant's passive, from Geomancer's passive, so they are able to still survive a very long time. On Ultra Nightmare, though, it's going to be a lot squishier of a team. Obviously, I'd still like to build that attack up, but we have a lot of gear to roll. Same thing with the crit damage, but again, a lot of gear still to roll. I don't even think we have crit damage amulet on because, again, we're so low on the defense, I didn't want to lose that. And you can see his accuracy is only at 212. Again, very low for Ultra Nightmare. Would definitely want to add another 20 or 30 to that, but I think we can get that either through substats in the amulet or just getting better gear, or even just glyphing. You can get another 30 accuracy that way fairly easily. So there's definitely room to improve the gear on this champion. And then as far as the masteries go, we are going down the defensive tree and the offensive tree just like I had with Draco. And then very last is Battle Khazar. Didn't roll his boots all the way, but everything else is pretty much there. The one thing is he's not fully ascended, which means we don't have space for a banner. That's a massive loss on this team, honestly. Even not wanting to put accuracy on it, we could easily put an attack banner on and just get more damage out of them. Those are things that can make a really, really big difference. This is why I really encourage farming Spider. It does massive work for your team. As far as his stats go, of course, 146 speed. So he is the fastest of all the champions besides Krisk, which means he goes first in the turn order and can cleanse everything, right? Whether that's the speed debuff and someone tanks the stun like Geomancer, or whether that's the stun itself, and then the team works just fully fine. We have 99% crit rate, couldn't quite get the 100% with 248 accuracy, plenty for Ultra Nightmare. In defense, you can see this is where I want to get us to, right around 3,000. 56,000 HP is obviously a lot, but for him, that's going to be just fine. As far as the masteries go, we haven't even finished the masteries yet. We will be coming down here to War Master. We'll come over here to Master Hexer to extend those poisons that he places. And then we would also come down here to Stoke to Fury, just so he gets a little bit extra damage when those debuffs are on him. It's not a huge thing, and honestly, we could pick pretty much anything else, but a little extra damage never hurt anybody. Now, one of the things you could do with Battle Khazar, there's multiple ways to build him. We could go down more the healing side of the support tree, and that's usually something I would do. Maybe take Steadfast here and not get as much accuracy going on and build that up and not worry so much on the offensive tree side of things. That's a really, really good option, I have to say. And I think maybe going back, that might be something I do. Maybe even using Battle Khazar as a lead to take advantage of his crit rate aura. If you keep Steadfast on him, the chances of him taking the stun are much, much lower. And honestly, Geomancer would take the affinity stun and whoever's next in the order would take the other one. So that would definitely be a good way to go. But I don't think this is bad here either, and will work just fine for us for this build. So as we get into the run here, we do have to do a little bit of manualing just to get everything in sync the way I want it in sync, which is important. You know, if you look on the website and check out the build that's there, you're gonna see it's, you know, the way it's set up and runs is gonna be a little bit different from the way I'm running this. But that's okay. There's a lot of flexibility in these things, and you know, I have Tyrant in here. I want to maximize his increased defense ability, so I've had to, you know, manipulate it just slightly to get all the timing just right that I want. But after that Draco turn, I can click auto, and it's going to run just fine. One of the beauties about these Slow Krisk Tunes is because of the speeds, we can actually run this team exactly the same on Nightmare as we do Ultra Nightmare. I don't have to change the skills. I don't have to change the speeds. It runs just the same. Now, one of the things you'll notice here as we're doing this, we go through, we're actually, we're right in between the AoEs right now. When we start, you're gonna see that, well, I guess I could talk in a second here. So like right before the stun, we get all the skills out there, right? Yada, 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 everything's moving fine. Ally protection from Tyrant right there. And that's gonna give us increased defense around. He steals the ally protection from Krisk. Battle cleanses the stun. We get all the debuffs from Draco and Geo, and then Krisk extends the buffs right before that first AoE. What that does is it allows us to have increased defense on for the entirety of the fight. It also allows us to have ally protection on for the entirety of the fight, except for Krisk in between the AoEs. He's the only one without it, but he's also the tankiest champion we have on this account, even with a bunch of stuff not rolled up. So because of that, I didn't have a problem with that, and Krisk is built basically to soak up damage from his allies. So now one of the interesting things when you have somebody like Battle Khazar on your team is that because it's like that continuous heal, right? It's only 15% for each one, so 30% healing. With Life Drinker, these champions will heal up if they're below 50%. It always gets a little bit tricky when some champions fall below 50% before other champions do. So if after that second AoE, if say Draco doesn't fall below 50%, but Geomancer does, Geomancer's gonna heal himself up considerably more than Draco will, because Draco's just going to be relying on those continuous heals, whereas Geomancer is getting the healing from his damage and the continuous heals, and that can throw off a little bit the stun targeting, and that's probably what's going to end up killing us in this run. Not guaranteed, but that's definitely something that I've always found to be kind of an interesting, you know, unique thing about Clan Boss. I just thought I would point that out. Now, on this account, we definitely could, I was looking at doing a 2-1 ratio, bringing in a Sandlash Survivor to help extend Krisk's bus, but the speed requirements are so high. On this team, everybody is between 147 and 140 speed except for Krisk. And when you can do that, even when you don't have the silver to roll everything up, even when you don't have a whole lot of gear options to choose from, you can still build a very solid team. We weren't able to put crit damage on Battle Khazar. We didn't maximize Krisk's crit rate. There's a lot of stuff that I would love to do with this type of a team that we just weren't able to because we didn't have the gear. So, you know, keeping those things in mind, I think this is a pretty cool team. We'll see how we do. Remember, we did about 2 key Nightmare, 24 million or so before, lasting till about this point, turn 24. We'll jump towards the end of this run. You guys can see exactly how long we'll last. I don't know about you guys, but I think anytime you can last 59 turns, pretty good. Now, this was Nightmare. They have not unlocked Ultra Nightmare. I said that at the beginning, but perhaps you missed it. So this is definitely Nightmare. They're not going to get the same kind of damage numbers on Ultra Nightmare, but this is still a team that should do about 3 key damage on Ultra Nightmare. And I expect once everything's leveled up and rolled and mastered and ascended, I think that this should be a 2 key Ultra Nightmare team eventually. Maybe not against Spirit Affinity, that can get a little bit trickier, but against everything else, I would feel fairly confident about that. This is a very solid team, even for early level accounts. Definitely something I would recommend doing. Once you have that Krisk, all you need is 4 other champions at pretty low speeds, and you can do some really, really good numbers here. So I don't know if you guys noticed, but a quick note about Krisk. I didn't have a decreased attack champion in this team other than Krisk. And the reason why I was able to do that is an interesting thing how the clan boss works. And this just kind of works in general when you're talking about AoE skills. The AoE skills don't happen all at the same time. They go in team order. So my leader, Tyrant in this case, is going to take that damage first from the clan boss. Now, every time Krisk gets hit, he places a decreased attack and decreased defense on the clan boss. And with his accuracy level, it's consistent enough that I feel like we can rely upon that. So after the stun, because the stun doesn't hit Krisk, those debuffs aren't on there. There is no decreased attack ability. So the clan boss always hits harder on that first AoE. Well, Tyrant is definitely taking that full brunt, and Krisk is definitely taking that full brunt. But everybody that goes after Krisk isn't. The decreased attack is applied to that damage the clan boss does after Krisk goes. So that's kind of an interesting thing there, where I'm able, because I have 2 of my tankiest champions in the front, they're able to absorb that extra bit of damage, and then everybody else afterwards is going to be protected with that decreased attack skill. And also, in the same vein, how I was talking about we should build Krisk with a lot of HP as an ally protection champion rather than a lot of defense, I would actually go the other way with Tyrant, because Tyrant is taking that stun. And yes, we do want a fair amount of HP, but the stun is an HP hit. And so what I actually want from Tyrant is a lot of defense and a goodly amount of HP. He's got about 50k right now, and that's probably where I would want to keep him. While Krisk, I'm going to continue to build his HP up. Tyrant, I'm actually probably going to keep him about that 50k. That's enough for him to survive those AoE hits, but at this point, I'd probably want to build his defense up. A couple little things, tidbits in this video for you guys to think about as you're building your team. Hopefully you found this helpful. I had a really fun time actually building this one. Haven't done a Slow Krisk team in a very long while, and I like them. They're very fun to build. So anyway, guys, I appreciate you coming by. If you guys would like some account work, whether it's clan boss or dungeons or arena, whatever it is, even a gear cleanse, hit up my Patreon. There's links down below in pinned comment and description of this video. Like all of my videos, it's on my website. It's everywhere. It's all my stuff. It's got it. And then on top of that too, don't forget to hit that Soundstripe link, hit that subscribe and notification bell. All right, that's all I got. Thank you guys for sticking around, and I look forward to seeing you next time. So until next we meet, I'm the Deadwood Jedi.